going to start with supply and demand, and then we'll be going into that after Christmas time. So,
Miss Davis,
yeah.
is the test tomorrow like answers off of the quizzes we took?
Well, no, there'll be different questions.
Yeah, different, like, but it's like the same thing almost, right?
Yeah, I didn't do, like, I just used a lot of book stuff because I just figured that was easier in this model to be able to do book things instead of more written work and that kind of thing. Does that make sense? And then I also looked as I was creating it to make sure that everything that was on the test was something that was asked about on those review sheets. So if you've done the reviews, there is nothing in the test that should be a surprise. So there's a fair amount of matching, and then there's about 10 questions from each section. Chapter 2 is a little smaller. So I think there's more questions from chapter 1 and chapter 3. So, okay. And then, like I said, we'll go through a few things after class in case you guys want to review. But for now, like I said, because I have got some kiddos here, I'm going to just present. Can everybody see the slideshow at home?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So we're looking at how we evaluate economic performance in our nation. So let's just talk about that. Oh, first, we get a glance. It is Wednesday. I have a Kahoot for today that I will share with you guys after class. The test is tomorrow. It's in Schoology, and I will be here for you during class tomorrow. So if you want me to answer any questions while you're taking it, that kind of thing, that's great. If you do need me to read the test, that would be something we can figure out a different time to do that. But I will be here tomorrow to help you with the test if you have any questions. So whether you're in class or at home, just know that. And then Friday is just a day for you guys to make up anything you're missing. Most of you that are here right now in class are great. Like, you'll just be able to relax on Friday. Or if maybe you don't want to take it tomorrow, you want to take it Friday, that's fine too. Okay. So we're looking at some economic and social goals in the free enterprise system that we've been talking about in this chapter. So free enterprise is what we are in America, that we're able to buy and sell goods without a whole lot of government involvement. We're able to start our own businesses. Yes, there's government regulations, but for the most part, it's a free nation, and we can do, whatever business that we want to do. Okay. What do you think one of the major economic goals are of being an American? What's everybody want as an American? Freedom. And when you're thinking about economics, what do you guys want? Yeah, good pay. So Joe said good pay. So enough money to pay your bills. I think that's fair. And for some of us, it's more than others. I know my son watches a lot of YouTube, and he wants like a big fancy house. And I'm like, we have a big house. How much bigger do you want your house to be? I'm like, those kinds of houses are like millionaires and cost lots of money. But for everybody, it's a little bit different. Some people are happy living out of the back of a van. Miss Dilly's sister lives in a van. They're traveling the world. So good for them. And some people need a little more than that. But I think one of the goals is that Americans can have the means to achieve those economic goals. All right. So there are 7 economic goals that we will talk about. The first is economic freedom, and Joe mentioned that having the freedom to do what we want, buy what we want. The government isn't telling us what kind of car we have to drive, what kind of apartment we have to live in, or house we have to live in. Efficiency is another thing. We've talked about this whole idea that resources are scarce, and scarcity doesn't just mean that, food is scarce. It just means that there's never going to be enough products for everyone to buy them, or we may not have enough money to buy the things that we want. So scarcity is kind of two-sided there. So we want to be as efficient as we can in our nation with the products or the factors of production, land, labor, and capital, meaning that we want to use the least amount of those things with the greatest amount of output. And economic equity is important. that people have equal choices in our nation. And we know that's not true always. Certainly not everyone has equal choices in our nation. But one thing that as a nation we can do is equal pay for equal work, non-discrimination, meaning that as a woman, I'm not getting paid less than my male counterparts here in the school district. And I know that's a fact. Overall in education, there's more men in administration than there are women in administration. And administrators make more money. Now, I think that's not necessarily because women aren't hired as principals and superintendents. It's because more men go into those jobs. But there still is some inequity in America. Women still make less on the dollar, meaning for every hour that a woman works as a whole in our nation, we're making about 80 cents to what men make. And part of that is just because of the jobs that women hold. So, okay. So when you look at this, and I know you guys at home on your screen can probably see it. Can you guys see these numbers? This is about how much people make per year in a nation. So in America, the average per capita income, that means the average amount of money, I don't know if that's family or individual, that is made per year is about $56,000. Germany, about $47,000. Brazil, $15,000, and India goes down to $6,300 a year per person. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, India has a much bigger population. It's not that their people aren't making this much money a year, $53,000 a year, but there are a lot more people in India. They have over 1 billion people, where America only has over 300 million. So there are some very poor people living in India that are making probably a lot less than $6,000 a year. Same thing with the other countries. So it's just interesting to understand that.
Also, the value of money in India is more.
Okay, so, and Joe said the value of money in India is more. So
for $20, you could get a lot of groceries compared to here.
Yep. So he said that, like for $20 in India, you could probably get what we get $100 here. So they don't need to spend as much to get the same amount of things. So they don't need to make as much money. And that's in Brazil too. So, okay. And on the next slide, this is just looking at purchasing power, like Joe mentioned. So, this is what you're looking at here in these graphs is the richest 10% and the poorest 10%. And you can see in America, it's hugely different versus India, it's not. The richest 10% don't really make that much more than the poorest 10%, which is actually pretty good. You have a little bit more equity there then. That means that the poorest people's buying power isn't that much different than the richest people in the nation. Versus America, it's very, very different. Okay, some more goals. Security, economic security. And I'm also teaching the Depression in my U.S. history class right now. And we've talked a lot about what was happening and what our government provided during the Depression. And then we bring that into the pandemic right now. Has there been some economic security in our nation? Well, they're trying at least. I know people that file for unemployment could also file for the government stimulus unemployment, which gave you an extra amount of dollars per week. And now I heard in the new stimulus bill, they're looking at continuing that and people that are unemployed getting an extra $300 a week, which is actually pretty significant considering in Wisconsin, the highest you can get for unemployment is like $400 a week or something like that. We have in America unemployment, Social Security, Medicare, but do know in America we don't have as much as some other countries do. So that's something we're still working on. Full employment. Before the pandemic, our unemployment rate was at one of the lowest points it's been in a really long time. Unemployment right now, I think I read was about, was it 6%? Oh, somebody's got a question. No, maybe not. But it went up during the pandemic when a lot of people just weren't able to work because of things that were going on. most people are back to work now, except things like the service industry. There are still restaurants and whatnot closed. Because even in like Wisconsin, where you think most stuff is open, well, they can only serve so many people. And then my daughter being a theater kid, theaters have been closed. So maybe in Monroe, we don't think about that as being like a big number, but in a city like New York, you're talking thousands of people that work at theaters, that are actors, actresses, tech crew, literally thousands of people work in theaters in New York, and they've been unemployed and won't start working probably again till next spring. So that's when you're looking at full employment, that's something our nation worries about as a whole. Price stability. That means we're talking about inflation there, and you may have learned a little bit about inflation in another class. Inflation is when you aren't able to buy as much stuff for your dollar. So when inflation gets bad, prices go up, but the value of the dollar goes down. And fortunately, that's not happening right now, but a country seeks price stability and that not happening. Okay, and then finally, economic growth. As Americans, we want to see more and more output every year. Actually, not just Americans. That's what nations want to see, is they want to be able to see this curve going up. This year it's probably going to be pretty stagnant, meaning our economic growth this year will probably be low, but in general, it does go up. Now, do you understand, like, you guys at home, I know you can't see me doing this, but I mean, it looks a little bit more like waves when you look at our economy. Over the years, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, and it goes down. But in general, it trends upward. And that's what a nation hopes for, is that in general, we're always growing our economy. Okay, so some problems with that are trade-offs and opportunity costs, which are two things we talked about in the first chapter, and two things that you're going to need to know for the test. Is that there's always trade-offs and opportunity costs. So a trade-off would be, if you raise the minimum wage, you will provide a better quality of life for some. But some say that if you raise that minimum wage, then businesses wouldn't be able to hire as many people because they have to pay their people more. So that's a trade-off. An opportunity cost would be minimum wage is higher, but unemployment is higher. So trade-offs and opportunity costs are very, very similar. If you can understand that concept, like, you're in good shape. So this is just a biography I thought was really interesting. This gentleman started his business, he's young, so let's see, 14, he's 34 years old. He started his own business called United by Blue. I'm just going to bring it up because I thought it was kind of cool. What it is sustainable clothing, gifts, things like that. So the stuff they use is recycled. They use a lot of hemp. They use things that are good for the environment to create products. And then for every, I don't know how many dollars you spend, they remove trash from the ocean. So they've removed over 3.5 million pounds of trash from the ocean. So they take some of the money that they make and they go out into the ocean and they collect trash. So I just thought it was a really cool company. But then the other really cool thing is that this guy started it when he graduated from college, and now he's probably making a lot of money. So it just kind of shows you that as an entrepreneur in America, there's a lot of things you can do. And I know these sustainable countries or companies, and like, anybody have Tom's shoes or know what they are? Anybody online? So Tom's shoes are, it's a company, it's just TOMS. They started a shoe company. For every pair of shoes that somebody buys from them, they donate a pair to somebody in need, which I just think is a really cool concept. So their shoes cost a little more, but you know that in buying them, that it's buying a pair of shoes for somebody that doesn't have one, which I just think is really cool. And these are perfect examples of, a free enterprise system in America, where you can start a company from the ground up and grow into something really big. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
I know Bombas also does that. That's a more popular one that lots of people know. Bombas, every time you buy a sock, not
Yep.
a pair, every time you buy one sock, they'll donate a sock.
Yeah, Aiden mentioned that there's every time you buy a sock from a company called Bombas, they buy a pair and donate it to somebody in need. So, okay, so test is tomorrow. You may use any sources that you have available to you to take it, and I'm going to be here. And it's like I said, I will open it up so that you guys can take it. I'm going to just, for you guys that are in class, I'm going to step back to my computer so kids can see me for a minute here. So I'm going to stop sharing.